What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. I've been of the same mind about fatherhood, at least for me, for a while now. Which is to say, it could happen, it'll probably happen, eventually, but I'm not in any rush because I can see or I can envision the way I would be a father, the way I'd need to be a father, probably the way I will be a father, and I'm not enthused about it. Because I've reached a separate conclusion. You remember that bit in Devil's Advocate when Milton is talking about pressure? Under pressure, some people break and other people get stronger. And I'm also a big fan of Knights of the Old Republic 2's Kreia. Big fan of Kreia. Wish she were my grandmother. I've concluded a couple things. One, I am on the low end of people who get stronger under pressure. Nowhere near as much as I'd like, and Jesus Christ, does it take me a long time to learn whatever it is all this bullshit is supposed to teach you. Eventually I get it. Eventually, but that's eventually with a big E. But the other conclusion is that's not just a saying. There are two sorts of people. There are people who break, and there are people who get stronger. And with how ugly the world is, how hostile the world is, it feels like if you want to be a good parent, you need to treat your child as if they are the sort of person who gets stronger under pressure, and you need carefully to put them under the correct pressures, or expose them to the correct pressures, and be there to help them if and when they fall. But that's tricky, and another thing I heard, and I heard it from a channel I wouldn't expect, if I'm remembering correctly, it is a long-time GTA Online pilot PvP channel, one of those weird instances in which a person makes good stuff and they say a lot of the things you like, but you know the person themselves annoys the shit out of you. And a weird place to hear something you really like. But one of the things this dude said was, embrace the unfairness of every situation you're in. And yeah, I could not have put that better. Unfairness and pain and fear and not knowing, internalizing those feelings is how you get stronger, how you become a contender in the world. And that's the sort of thing that keeps me going. Professionally, I always feel like I'm drowning. However, you're often attacked by like piranhas of meaninglessness. And not in that existential way you would get when you were younger. These days, it's more like it feels like a timer is running out, but you don't even know what objectives you're supposed to be completing in a game. You're running out of time and you don't know what to do. My method, or the method I've come into for dealing with that feeling and that terror, is not to try to unload myself, but instead to add more weight and drown myself worse. And it's not some noble struggler shit. This is what you do because this is all there is to do. If you care about contending or trying to get wherever it is we're going, hurting worse or feeling more exhausted is the only way for the soul monkey to get off your back, at least for a little while. But the only problem with this is it hardens your heart. And also, not everybody is built to do this. A lot of people are born to be these little push around shit kicker drones who are, it's so alien to me, my throat is fucking up, who are better off without dignity, without accomplishment. People who should be prey. People who were sown to be reaped. Not by you or by your class of person necessarily, but by the born predator class. And I was raised in the least optimal form of this. I was raised to be low. I was raised to be a push around pussy. And I've spent this last stretch of life climbing out of that. And in a lot of ways, I'm still in it. That's the problem. We talk about suffering or pain, unfairness as a mutagen. This is like getting dumped in a vat of FEV. This is not curated. This is chimera shit. And I've been hesitant about fatherhood for two reasons relating to this. One, I'm not sure what I would be supposed to do with a child who is a born break under pressure person. Maybe that's a genetic thing. I hope it's a genetic thing. But then with potential contender children, I can envision continuing this cycle of negativity, of ugliness. In fact, I think it was last week, I was driving home and I'd had a very bad day, and all that was on my mind the entire drive home was, boy, I wish I had a wife I could smack around and a son I could sit there and shout at and break his shit and slap him and know that he can't do anything, while knowing if he's anything like me at all, this will be good for him. Fuck him, I'm doing him a favor. Because if he can deal with me, then he'll be able to deal with anyone else. Any of life's other unfairnesses. And it was making me sick imagining it, because it was so vivid. And as I get older, the more I realize my father and I are essentially the same person, which is weird when you start to realize that. And now I'm beginning to try to figure out the way he thinks about things or feels about things based on the way I think about things and feel about things, which is disturbing, because I don't like what I think and feel about things and about people. And it's weird. I don't have the word for it. I don't know the right word for it. But realizing genetically what was handed down was all intentional. There weren't mistakes. It wasn't happenstance. That's not the right word. It wasn't incidental, accidental. This was all intentional, generationally, because my body wants to do this, the exact same thing. Except I'm not sophisticated enough to do it sustainably. And I've been talking a lot more with other members of my family, mostly my aunts, hearing about the ways they raise their kids, how they see their father and their mother and themselves and what they do about it, how they feel about it. And I'm realizing all this shit about my family. My father, of all the kids, he's not the big... No, he's not a fuck up at all. That's the thing. He's the most mentally fucked and the most miserable, but he's also the most successful. As in, if any of those kids had a chance to be something, it was going to be my father. And to a large extent, he was something, is something still. So something in this formula works because I'm fucked in the head, I'm miserable, but of all these cousins, if any of us are going to be something or do something, it's going to be me. And I'm already getting there. And I haven't been in a rush to start a family, to become a father, because of. I don't like it. I don't like that this is what it takes to create the chance at a maybe high level, high performing child. And I say chance because, as much as I like myself, every day these thoughts go through your head, and you have these moments. There aren't a ton of them, but you have these moments. You know, your body will do things before you can react, and at any moment, your life, your trajectory could just end. And the chances of that are low, but we've gotten close before. It wasn't exactly the same thing, but there, when you're playing with fire like this, you have no idea the number of things and the gravity of things that could go wrong in your soul at any moment. Or if you're a parent, the soul you're helping construct. And I don't like the way this method has gotten results in at least one child per generation, generationally. And how easily and how sensibly it would be to repeat the process again. Because of course, with my luck, as as ugly as it all is, you can at least on your deathbed say, "Oh, and that's not even a joke, by the way. My kid won because of what I inflicted on him." And I'm talking in extremes. Here's the part that really unsettles me. It's not the idea that I would go through with this hyper extreme sort of inflicting stuff, injecting your child with trauma mutagen, but worse, I could easily see myself doing a lower frequency form of it. That's what's upsetting. Because even right now, that scenario I imagined that would be so cathartic or feel so cathartic, to me, to my mind, that's ugly. But undercutting your child or making things difficult for them or putting them in ugly or unfair situations on a lower level, that only makes sense in my mind. I don't like that some level of this is what it has to take. But why is this video called Reconsidering Fatherhood? Well, at my nonprofit, the ship is still sinking, but we who remain are going down fighting. And part of that has involved my needing to watch or watch out for, be around one of my co-workers' kids, 2 boys. And at first, they annoyed the shit out of me. And they still annoy the shit out of me, or at least the younger one does. The older one is fine. We'll talk about him. But at first, I tried to maintain as much distance as possible. For a bunch of reasons. One, they annoyed me and made my job harder. still can make my job hard, can't focus, always something. Two, because I don't want to inflict myself on them, and they haven't been raised the way I would raise kids. They don't have a lot of boundaries. They don't have a ton of, or at least the younger one doesn't have a ton of respect or much sense, which is annoying because the older one has some sense. Part of the distance is, or was, still is, in a sense, I don't want to overstep, and these are the, or at least this is the sort of kid who will make you have to do something which could very easily become overstepping. And with how they've been raised, which is, as far as I know, a more Heinlein would have been disgusted by it way, what I would perceive as a very mild intervention might be taken as an extreme intervention. So, for all these reasons, trying to maintain distance. But over the years now, because I've been exposed to them more and more over time, but a lot recently, they have grown on me. They still annoy the shit out of me, and I still try to maintain some distance, but they're very comfortable around me, which is weird because I'm not mean, but I'm not warm. I'm working usually, so I don't make time to be a person in their life. But they hug me a lot. They try to talk to me regularly. They've started getting me to do grown-up stuff for them, like killing spiders and shit. And I think the reason they're growing on me is, at least so far, they are not malicious. They can stress me out like nobody's business. They can annoy me like nobody's business. But I can't recall one instance they have ever tried to be sneaky or tried to be mean, tried to be backstabbing or front stabbing. They're just sweet kids who are hyperactive and don't have a lot of sense and annoy me and haven't been raised the way I would raise them. But it's the innocence, I guess. They are not going around trying to do evil. There aren't 15 layers of malicious deception. And also, they don't hold me and an extraordinarily standoffish version of me, which is saying a lot, against me. And my aunt, who is an ENTJ, typologically speaking, which is probably why we click. And I think my other aunt is an ESFP, which I was thinking about that the other day. Because we do click, but it's like a weird clicking. Anyway, my ENTJ aunt talks about the way having children, at least for her, and why she had as many kids as she did, it was an opportunity to heal parts of yourself by parenting in the way you wish you had been parented. Which doesn't mean being a pushover or spoiling your kids and raising brats. I don't know how to describe it, but being a better gardener, maybe. She uses a lot of TikTok language, which is funny, but I think that's, if I were to translate it, that's how I would translate it. But that all didn't make much sense to me, or hasn't made much sense to me. The assumption in my head is humans are poisoned by default. And the best you can do is direct them away from their natural states by fucking them up a bit. And hopefully they turn out a bit competent, a bit decent, but not how they would turn out if you didn't do all that, which would be becoming poisoned or poisoning others, which you accelerate even worse by allowing them to continue acting like that. And I do still believe that, for the most part. However, after dealing with my coworkers' kids for this long, I can see a bit of what my aunt was talking about. And when I think about fatherhood now, I can imagine a chance of doing it right, quotes. Maybe there is a way for parenthood not to be this traumatic for everybody, nightmarish thing. Knowing my luck and my genes and my nature, it's probably a slim chance, but it's there probably. Or maybe not. Maybe it's more like a window. Maybe it's okay if everything gets fucked up later as long as you don't fuck it up in that window when it matters most. I've sat here for a few minutes now trying to think of where to take this video. But my main point is, for me, I don't think fatherhood is a totally guaranteed doomed endeavor. And that changes things. I won't be doing anything different for right now because I feel like I'm still incubating. This last handful of years has felt like a long incubation period. And it's still going on. And even though I could, well, two ways. For me, fatherhood has always felt either 100% inevitable or 100% not going to happen, which is the only way it can be. But it's always felt more likely to happen than not, even with this weird distancy thing going on. At least one member of the family raised at least one relatively normal kid. And now, my dealing with my coworkers' kids, I can see a possibility of a way that this won't be the worst, and that changes everything. And I'm hoping I come out of this incubation period, these incubation years, a lot more prepared to seize upon that possibility. And on one hand, this is a good feeling, or this has been a productive internal arc, which hasn't concluded. But on the other hand, it's a little mortifying because isn't this the way everyone who sets out to have kids feels? They feel like they're gonna do a good job, and then they fuck everything up and then produce someone like me. Or even worse. I don't know, but there's more to this than I thought there was. And that's been a relief, even though probably it shouldn't be. Can you imagine holding a grudge, or grudges, against a single-digit aged child for over 20 years? There might be a way to pull this off in a worthwhile way, and I might be able to do it one day. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.